And good morning, my superhuman friends. Thanks for coming along. Hey, never fear, Cable Tie is here. Well, that's a relief because I had it all planned today. I'd arranged for Mick to come along for a joint live stream, which would have been really cool, but I don't know what he's up to. Probably causing trouble somewhere.
Hey, John!
What?
Are you there?
What? Mick!
John.
Mick, you're here!
Oh, sorry!
Careful, that was... that wasn't very valuable.
What's that? Does that cost much? Was that expensive?
Very, it was expensive. I'm sure it was very nice.
I'm sure I could put it back together again.
Slide on over. Yes, he's here.
Hello.
Hey.
How you going, John?
I'm very good. Thanks
for
coming along.
That was such a casual. It wasn't really planned sort of start, was it?
No.
Well, I've got to do it. It's got to happen.
Yes.
So, how's things?
Sion says hi. Good morning, everybody. Yes.
Sion.
Alistair, Johnny, Keen's here, Graham, Cabletti, Jordan, Dodgy's here, MadTech, lots of people. And most importantly, Mick is here. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all right.
Yeah.
I was down here on contract, so I thought I'll come and visit you.
Yeah.
So that was good. Yeah.
So, for those who don't know, Mick has a YouTube channel called Mick Make. Or is it Mick Make or Mick Makes? Because you use different things in different places.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I started out thinking about a brand because I wanted to get back into. I wanted to start making YouTube videos and on embedded systems and things like that. And so I'm thinking, from a business perspective, I wanted to be actually branded properly. And so I spent about a month figuring out a decent name and eventually settled on Mick Make. And so I thought, okay, domain names. I bought mickmake.com, mickmake.net, and it was like completely clear. When you did a Google search, there was just nothing on Mick Make.
Yeah.
Except some weird esoteric French film, which is really weird. And so I thought, okay, I'll create all the social accounts tomorrow morning. And so I went to bed, woke up in the morning, and started creating all the social accounts. And some little bugger had pinched Mick Make, like on Twitter, on Facebook. And so this is after I created all the domains.
You missed it by hours.
You missed it by hours. So someone must have been sitting there looking at someone creating all these domains and actually created social accounts on that. So that's why I have Mick Makes on Twitter, and I think I've got Mick Makes on Facebook, things like that. So
yeah. Well, it describes what you do.
You live and learn. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's either Mick Make or Mick Makes. So yeah, I guess.
So you're not too fussed either way now, or
you just live with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will. I'll put the link to Mick's channel in the video description later. I'll edit it later to put it in for those of you who haven't seen it. Mick's Mayhem seems to be up there, says Chip. Yes.
Yes. I have a bit of a reputation for that, yes.
Yeah. Which reminds me, there was a video that you did, must be about a couple of years ago, where you started the video with a beard and then you wiped your face and then part of it disappeared.
Yeah.
And I was watching the video and I remember the first thing you did on the first wipe, I was just sort of half paying attention and I thought, hang on, what the hell just happened? And I kept watching. I started paying attention and then you went, and more of the beard disappeared.
Yeah. I like my brother and I had this fascination with video production, and so we had this old Super 8 camera, and we'd just go out, we'd have a roll of film, we'd go out and just make videos, right? And so I've always had this fascination with creating videos, and so one of my favourite channels is actually Corridor Crew, and like seeing how they do stuff. So there's that interest that I've had, as well as electronics. And so, of course, I'm just merging the two.
Mm-hmm.
So, like all of my videos, I always have some sort of gag in it. And there's one gag that, do you know, I'm just trying to think of the name of the movie. That's the one with, I can't even remember the fellow's name. It ended with the antagonist being out in the middle of the snow.
Mm.
Do you know what it is? And it's... does anyone on the chat know what the movie I'm talking about?
Maybe
anyway,
describe something else about the movie.
There's one point where there's a girl running up the hallway, and she's reaching for the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, and she reached for the doorknob, and then suddenly the camera it turned around, and she was actually coming backwards through the thing, and
I think I've seen that shot.
Has someone seen? Does anyone?
A movie about a
guy. Yeah, thank you. Yes, a movie about a guy
and a girl.
No, and a medicine cabinet.
I don't remember the movie, but I'm sure I've seen discussion of this shot.
Yes,
talking from a cinematography analysis, like how it was filmed through.
It's dead easy. It is really, really easy to do.
Yeah.
To pull off, and so I thought, I'll do that.
But it looks amazing.
And so, in fact, Sion, that was the start of the video. That bit was when I was coming down to see you in Melbourne. So, if you watch that video when I'm going down to see Sion, that's the start. Right.
Contact. Steph says contact.
No, it's it has. There was one scene where the antagonist, and I can't remember the guy's name, is knocking the door down with an axe, and he says, "Here's Johnny."
Oh,
you know, come on, everyone's.
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson
is the lead.
Yes.
Yes. Psycho. Not Psycho.
Anyway, irrelevant. Yeah. It's someone will remember what it is. But anyway, so I love doing this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Parliament question time. Yes. Yes, Parliament. Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. The Shining. Yes. Good on you, Jordan. Good on you, Jordan. Yeah.
And Richard got it too.
No, not Chainsaw Massacre. Yes. No, The Shining. Yeah. Good on you guys. So anyway, what was I saying?
I don't know. This is so random discussion.
I love doing that stuff, and I love making videos on electronics. One of the really cool things is to be able to see someone say, based on your videos, someone say, I made this because of your videos. That is just gold. And someone actually sent me a box. It's quite simple, simple idea. It was just a box that he'd made from a laser cutter, and it had a Raspberry Pi in it. It had a little audio card on it, and two knobs on it, which are little they're not little multi-position switches on it, and all it was just a music player. But music player for someone with dementia. So very simplified, two knobs,
very basic
volume
interface.
control and forward back. And so he made it for his father because his father had dementia, and he heard that replaying music helps people remember. And he sent it to me and said, I made it because I saw your videos. And I thought, this is what I want. This is great.
Success.
Yeah. So there's nothing more pleasing than seeing someone make something and learn something, based on your videos. And you had the same sort of thing. People. I'm sure people have probably contacted you saying, I've made this with your videos. So it's really nice, and I'm sure Sion has done that as well. So yeah, it's really nice. But
Dodgy says, wasn't that Princess Bride with the chainsaw?
Yes, could be.
Yes,
Dodgy Brothers. Yes,
you're spot on, Dodgy.
Yes, it's Princess Bride. Yeah, the man with the 6 fingers. Yeah, yeah. Actually, you wouldn't have 6 fingers with a chainsaw. Yeah. So So I'm sure there's people here that were watching my channel. I haven't been producing videos much because we were talking about this earlier on.
Yeah.
The
Burnout
YouTube
is a thing.
the YouTube algorithm is a problem, and it actually surfaced a while back too that anyway I had burnout, so I was pushing through 2 videos a week, really rigorous schedule, and I got to the point where I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah. So you're saying earlier that this was basically your full-time job for 3 years.
Yeah. So I started out.
I
was doing. So I was an enterprise architect at HP, and I saw the writing on the wall that they were getting rid of people, and so I took a voluntary redundancy, and thought I need to get back into the stuff I love, because working for large corporate environments, things just move at the pace of just molasses.
At the pace of bureaucracy.
Really slow. Good example. To release a basic web server, WordPress database, single instance server, took 12 teams in 6 weeks.
Hang on, 12 teams?
12 teams, 6 weeks.
How do you split that job to 12 teams?
You'd have the network guys, you'd have the DNS guys, you'd have the revision control guys, you'd have the database web server guys, the Docker, or actually it's VMware, the virtual guys, the physical racking guys. It's just
so then maybe legal, and you'd have content people and like
no, this is even before the content.
Oh, okay. This is just to get the infrastructure before you can even start putting things on it.
And I can remember sitting in 6 coffees and 12. Yes, exactly right. So you can understand why I got so frustrated with it. And I can remember sitting in a meeting and saying, guys, like Michael said, I could do this in an hour, or back then. I could do this in an hour. Give me an hour and I can do this. And that's including spinning up the virtual machines, making the network changes, all that sort of stuff, right? So why are we spending 6 weeks doing this? And so anyway, I got sick of ex-HP. Yeah, when was I at HP? I was at HP, hang on, what's 2022? Sorry, the last 2 years has just been, like, I don't know what's happened the last 2 years. It's gone, disappeared. So I'm just trying to figure out
the chronology.
Yeah. So 5 years ago. Oh, you're an ex-HP? Excellent. I was wasn't in the laptop section, of course. I was in the enterprise section.
Michael, remember to turn down your TTL.
Sorry, what?
Oh, Michael said, which reminds me, I have to make DNS changes tonight. Yeah, bring that TTL down in advance.
So I was. You just got sick of that. Got sick of the bureaucracy and all that. And so I started my own little company, started up YouTube, as I said before, and started breaking into making videos. 2 things I love: making videos. 3 things. So making videos, helping people, and electronics, and that was fabulous. I absolutely loved it.
It's the Venn diagram of all the good things.
All the good things. Yeah. So, because I'd been at HP officially, 20 years, I was originally working for Alcatel-Lucent. I was sold off as a job lot to HP. Anyway, it's beside the point. So officially working 20 years, so I had a fair whack of redundancy, right? And so I built up. So basically, YouTube full-time, 3 years. It just doesn't pay. It just does not pay.
So did you make any money out
4
of YouTube?
things, yes. Comedy, yes. See ya? Exactly. Sorry, what was that?
Did you make any money out of it? Did you find any way to get revenue out of it?
Yeah, I did. So I had sponsors, and I had Patreon. I had trouble with Patreon, and the problem is that I actually don't like asking people for money.
I know that problem.
Like I don't
I feel
like
so bad about it.
And having been in that position where you're asking people and you're saying, oh, give me money, and I just don't like it.
Yeah. For me, the feeling is that I don't deserve it. Is that the same for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a fraud.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's this sort of paradigm shift where you're suddenly saying, okay, I'm an employee now, and I've actually got to earn my worth. And so I'd try and go way beyond, above and beyond what I should be doing, which is one of the reasons why I ended up burning out as well. So that's quite hard to do. So, but anyway, it got to the point where I was actually earning enough, but I wasn't earning enough.
Yeah.
For it to be sustainable.
To make it a long-term thing.
And then I thought I'd get into it, really hammer away at it, and then burn out, and then but I was picking up. Yeah, I did, and I was picking up side contracts to just help keep going. Good on you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
On you, Chris. Now you've got to earn your $2.
Okay.
Sorry, Chris. That's absolutely fabulous.
Do I need to do it? Do I need
John?
to dance or
no? It's good that you support John, because it's without this sort of thing, you wouldn't be able to do it. So it's actually really important. Like, even though we're talking about we don't feel like we're earning it, it is hard. It is hard to do.
Yeah.
But without that extra little bit, it doesn't actually help you to continue on doing what you're doing.
It makes it,
and you wouldn't
in
be able to
multiple
do
ways, both practically in terms of actually needing the money, but also in terms of being able to justify the time. It's not just to myself, but to my family.
That's right.
Saying, why do you spend so much time doing this? It doesn't even bring in any money. It's like, well, partly because I want to do it. That's the main reason. Yes.
And I actually
Michael, no. We are not doing that.
I actually calculated...
Tassie Bob, thank you.
On your Tassie Bob. I actually calculated the amount of hours I was doing. I was probably getting about $5 an hour.
Yeah.
So you think, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's better ways of doing it. But then you look at, like, a good example is Corridor Crew. So they've got a side business in special effects, but they've managed to produce 2 videos a week, and they've got a pretty good schedule, but they seem to be still going and going and going. So there's ways to do, but they've got a sponsorship, like a minute and a half sponsorship ad in the middle of videos,
which is a big chunk.
A big chunk, but you can skip through it, but it's a big chunk. So you can't live off YouTube. You've got to have a side business. Dave Jones does it really well. So he's essentially, everything's free. He still has his Patreon, but he's got his side business of making products.
Yeah, and also he has a huge amount of traffic to his forums, and there are ads on the forum. So I think that's a fair bit of his income. So Freetronics for years, Freetronics was a sponsor of EEV blog, and so we had the Freetronics logo on his site, and we just pay him, I pay him every month basically. And once he's got a few people doing that, then that's enough to keep food on the table.
That's right. And it's hard. And so the problem is, as a solo YouTuber, you're running a business. You are running a business. And it's hard to juggle that, and being solo, it's really hard. See, I was talking to Sion, and Sion's really flat chat at the moment. He's sick as well with COVID, and so I get it. It's really hard. It's really hard. Hardware side business, yes.
And Sion said it also helps when you have a team. A one-person YouTube gig is hard. This is the thing. Also, I should say, this is not at all the conversation that I was expecting to have, but it's interesting. This is it's interesting hearing the perspective of someone else that's been in a similar position to me. But I remember years and years ago where there was some, I can't remember who it was, but there was some YouTuber that I used to watch regularly, and it came across as one person like just having fun and making videos and sharing their projects and things, and there was a comment about at some point about their editor, and then it made me think, hang on, they're not doing this all themselves. And I started looking into it, and it turned out that they had like a production manager, a video editor, they had a sponsorship manager, and there was this whole team of people making it look like there was one grassroots person working out of their garage just having fun working on projects. And when you look at really big channels like was it Linus Tech Tips?
Yeah, I was going to say like
How many people do they have? Like 60?
Stack. But they've got a business.
Yeah, that's right. They've got 60 people basically to run a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and that's what's required. And see, I was actually at the point, just at the burnout point, where I really need to get someone in, but I can't afford it.
No, how do you pay for it? Yeah.
So I barely, it's not making ends meet with the YouTube revenue. And then, and then you got the issue of, well, okay, I'll start putting ads on the video on top of the sponsorship ads that I've got. And then, I know when I watch videos, you think, far out, I don't want to watch another ad. Goodness sake, and especially when you get 2 ads or 3 ads back to back, it's really hard. So I think, I don't know. I don't know how.
I ended up turning off ads on pretty much all of my videos in terms of YouTube ads, which is quite different to paid content, because the amount that I was getting out of things like Patreon was more than 10 times what I was getting from Google ads. And the ads were intrusive, and I figured I just don't want to subject people to having ads popping up all over my videos, and
they're often I think it's changed now, the YouTube algorithm, such that they can put it in at any time, can't they? I think it was a recent change.
I don't know,
but it's often you have the ads just coming in just so that you think, oh, this is really interesting, and you stop it, that's an ad. And then you have 2 ads. Forget it.
So I figured I would prefer to forego that small amount of income and not make the videos annoying.
Because you tend to lose people that way.
I'm
just thinking cable tie. Squirrel.
Steve is at the factory being the watch squirrel at the moment.
Yes.
Oh,
sorry, am I out of frame? Sorry, I keep moving around a lot. There we go.
I do have a plan for how I'm going to set up my cameras and things in the new place, which should be
20
a lot better.
cameras.
No, I need 3. For doing interviews.
1 overhead.
No, the overhead as well. That's different. But I mean, just for interviews, you need the 2 people facing each other. So you need 2 face cameras and a third-person perspective camera.
I've often what I did was have 3, 1 front, and then 1 facing one person, 1 facing another person, and that way you can get. It's thank you, Kane.
Frame. What are friends for?
That's what was I saying? You distracted me now. So you can get the best of. So and it's if you're doing editing, and if you're recording a conversation with people and you're doing editing later on, it's handy to have that extra
then you
point.
Can cut between views.
B-roll. You can never have enough B-roll.
I know. To hide all the problems.
Oh yeah. B-roll just covers up all sorts of evil. It's terrible. So we were talking earlier on. What else were we talking about?
We were talking about many things.
We're talking about. Actually, our common interest in
input devices.
Input devices and disability. So I had this side project. Well, I've always been fascinated with input devices and being able to have something that I can input into a computer, whatever. With minimal fuss, and something that's I can carry around. So I had this this concept of a codec keyboard
Mm-hmm.
for many years, and it's sort of changed over the years. It's in the 80s. It started out with a ball that I could sort of press the keys on, and that sort of. And I thought, no, a ball is not something you can chuck in your pocket easily, and so it sort of merged into like a glove that had little magnets, because I want to be able to keep that tactile feel. So when you press a keyboard, you want to have that tactile feel, and so a glove with little magnets that had that little click, 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 click. But then a glove isn't. If you want to be able to work on something, a glove isn't really.
It gets in the way.
And fingerless gloves, great. Oh no, but that's still messy because they're actually really hard to get on. So then I started looking at measuring the muscle, activation. But then you don't get that tactile feedback. So
and also you have the issue that typically you can only get a very limited number of channels. So it's like one or two outputs if you're lucky.
And so then you've got to relearn something. The other thing is I want to be able to have something that's intuitively you can pick up and just use. I recently backed something on Kickstarter. I can't remember the name of it. We didn't talk about this, but it was Tap.
Okay.
A Tap keyboard. So it looks like a nunchuck.
Yep.
And you stick it on your hand, and it basically measures where your fingers, the activation of your fingers, not activation, muscle activation, but it's just motion sensing.
Okay.
So, and it's a very basic keyboard. It's got A, E, I, O, U, and all the various other things for all the other characters.
Yeah.
And so I invested the time learning that, and actually quite faster than I can do 30, 40 words.
They finished, the Kickstarter finished and
delivered.
Yeah,
Kickstarter finished, delivered, and it works quite well. A lot of problems with it in terms of false activation and not recognising fingers in proper positions and things like that. But I thought, I wonder if it works on my right hand. And I chucked it over my right hand, and I could just type just as fast on my right hand. I thought, hey, this is really interesting.
So your brain could deal with it.
It just switches over, and I can suddenly type on that just as fast as my right hand.
So is it a mirror? Like the thumbs are the same? Or
the thumbs are the same. So I just put it on that hand and just turn it round.
Yeah.
Like, turn it round. And
so your brain is mapping that action to that action.
I thought, what? I wasn't learning on my left hand.
No.
So so I thought, hang on, this is really good because now I can type 100 words per minute.
Maybe it's like what's the?
Yeah, that's right.
Can you do that?
But yes, perfect for solving Wordle. So that's my holy grail, is to be able to find something that that's not obtrusive. See, I love electronics and tech that is unobtrusive. It's not visible. It's just there when you need it, when you want to use it. And doesn't get in the way. It's not complicated. It's sort of self-repairing in that it doesn't have any complexity that relies on other things. It doesn't have that domino effect of complexity where you might have a voice input device that's listening for your voice that depends on a server in the cloud, which depends on this, which depends on that, which that's sort of my holy grail, is to be able to have a situation like that where you just have tech that just works. Like a pencil. You pick up a pencil and you write with it. Hey, it works. That would be nice. That'd be nice. But of course, you can't get to that. It's hard to do that. So input devices. And really, where we're talking about disability. So you've got a project. You mentioned you've got a project on.
I have a few.
Disability projects. So I think it's over there, isn't it? The board that.
Well, this one is. In fact, I can probably switch to. Let's see if we can do a camera switch. We can.
Switch.
Amazing.
Woo!
I think a lot of people have seen this already. This is a project I've been working on with Chris, which it's basically an Arduino Leonardo with a USB-C connector on it and 8 inputs. And when you activate any of the inputs, it sends some character output, and it can do things like emulate a keyboard or a mouse or a joystick or a game controller, whatever options you want set in the firmware. And this is the same thing with its little LCD on it in an enclosure. And so what you can do is use this as the breakout for building a custom input device depending on someone's needs, which could be as simple as a button on a cable, or it could be a foot switch or a chin switch or whatever, anything that acts as a switch. You just plug it into one of these sockets and then it'll generate the output that matches that particular input, which could be move the mouse left, or press the fire button on a game controller, or type out a sentence or something. It doesn't really matter. So the idea is that this is a building block for whatever custom input device that you want to create as a starting point. Just digital input. There's no analog input on this one, although they are analog capable inputs. So we thought about analog versions as well.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, my son works for a wheelchair company. And he gave me two wheelchair units. Oh, that's so good. And he removed all the speed limiting on it, which is so good, because it can now go 20-25 kilometers an hour.
Remove all the safety interlocks.
Yeah. So so my interest with all that sort of stuff sort of started with my uncle. So he worked for the CSIRO. He was very much like you, me, Keen, Sion, guys that just want to get in there and do stuff. There's probably other people on your channel that are the same way. Just want to get in there, make stuff work. And so he was the guy the CSIRO Boffins went to when there was a problem to be solved. So I regularly go up to his farm in Armidale, and he'd have there's a sheep out in the paddock with a big box on the back, with pipes running out of the box and into the bum or the stomach, or things like this. And so that's where my interest in all this started. And like, he would give me Christmas presents. There's one Christmas present he gave me, and it was a cardboard sheet and a Vero board with some random IC that he found from somewhere, and he'd soldered all these wires out and had plus minus 9 volts. It's some really weird esoteric voltage, and plus minus, and it said have fun. Things like that. Yeah. And
so you'd have to look up what the chip was. But of course, back then, no internet.
You had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so, so I think I sort of learnt that I had to be an integrator of stuff. And so I was talking to Keen about this years ago, about integrating. And Keen's an integrator as well. And so it's a case of, you've got a round peg and a square hole that's really small. You've got to get it to work, and it's great. And that joy of being able to say, hey, I've got it going. This actually works. It's really good. And it's really exhilarating. So and you
get that endorphin buzz of, I've solved this problem.
Yeah. I've made the little LED glow.
Yeah.
It works.
So
it's a real buzz, and it's a great time at the moment, because things are just so easy. We're talking about how quickly it takes to make a PCB. So quick, and you've got pick and place machines, and you've got it's just everything. It's quite easy to do.
It is.
Before, take a couple of months to produce a PCB and cost $3,000 or something. Yeah. So
actually, I thought it was kind of funny. If you look at the name tag on the,
I was looking at that. Mick will
make it. There is a funny backstory to that.
Okay.
My neighbour, 2 doors down, his name is Mick. His wife is Deb, and I've been friends with them for must be about 35 years, a long time. And so whenever I would turn up, like go to their place, Deb would say, "Hey, do you want a cup of coffee?" And I'd say, "Oh yeah, that'd be good." And she said, "It's okay, Mick will make it." So Mick would go off and make the cup of coffee, and then,
Right.
and it became a joke over time that whatever she needed, Mick will make it.
Right.
And then she said, "When you invent something, you should call it the Mick will make it."
Yeah, that's right.
So when I made my pick and place machine, I called it Mick will make it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So whatever
Very
board I
apt.
want, Mick will make it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Very apt.
Yeah.
So where'd you get these things from?
Oh, they're
you
3D
made them?
printed.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's right. Yeah, I think I saw those. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, those are the feeders.
Yeah, feeders.
Mm.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
And you have you built a light placer kit. Is that right?
Yeah, so I contacted I was trying to think of the fellow's name. Yeah, so I said, "Oh look, I have a need for a light placer, but I can't afford your $3,000."
Yeah.
Or however much it was. I said, so I struck up a deal with him. I said, "I'll do enough. Actually, I've got to do the remaining videos."
Oh.
So if he's, I can't remember the fellow's name, but if he's watching, I'm really sorry.
Well,
I've got to do the other remaining videos.
This ties into something that Sion said in chat earlier.
Yeah.
About this is when we were talking about money earlier in the conversation, and he mentioned something about and the obligation to sponsors being a difficult thing to deal with as a content creator.
Yes,
So there's that feeling that yes, you've done this deal. They've sent you the stuff. You've maybe produced 1 or 2 videos, but the deal was for 3, and
Yep.
yeah, that sort of thing can weigh on your mind.
Yeah, and so like it's still on my mind, and I don't intend to actually deliver on it. It's going to be years later, but I'll probably end up over delivering. So yeah, I still intend to deliver on it. There was one sponsorship that I had, which was just ended up just being so painful. Oh my goodness, it was. I can't even remember. There's a NAS device. Can't remember what the NAS device was, but it just ended up being so painful. Like I produced this video in my own way, and they said no, we don't.
They weren't happy with it.
Less humour, please.
What?
You've seen my channel. What are you doing?
I know what you were getting yourself in for.
So no, I'm not going to do it. So yeah, that sort of fizzled. I said, look, I want to send it back. I want to send the unit back. I'm not interested. Like I've spent all that time.
Yeah.
You know, about 3 or 4 days writing the script, because I don't write scripts. Because I invariably get off topic. Quite often.
No one does that.
So I have to write scripts to just keep myself focused and keep things on topic. Otherwise, my videos would be like Dave Jones videos. So I spent time writing scripts, recording, editing, all that sort of stuff, sending it off, and they say, "No, there's less humour, please." Sorry, I'm not going to do it. So yeah.
Did you end up sending it back?
No, they didn't want it.
They just didn't want it. It's like, oh, no.
It's okay.
But did you put up your humour-filled video?
No, I was thinking of reusing that section, but it was too topic specific. What I had to do, what they wanted me to do is, so as a NAS box, they wanted me to tell people how really good how easily you can actually interface video cameras to this NAS box and have it record video. I thought, yeah, that'd be easy to do. I can make it humorous, but like it just,
didn't work out.
Just didn't work out, and that was probably the more deviating I'd go from my channel. So channel, you got to be careful about your channel, because if you veer off your main core topic, it can be quite damaging to it.
People can become very upset.
Yeah, very upset very easily. Yeah. So, so you got to, it's a funny thing. You got to be conscious of, or all the people, or your fan base basically, all the people watching your video, which help you produce the video. But then also, it can be a slippery slope where you end up going down a path that I'm not really actually wanting to do. I mean, I think Dave Jones probably he says it best. He says, "Bugger off," you know. He says, "I'm not going to do that." He says, "You get what you get."
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I guess, you know, but there's still a lot of people following him. Hey?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting thing. But I sort of ended up becoming known as the SBC guy because I do videos on, you know, what's the best SBC if you want to stick it in a car. You know, what temperatures can the Raspberry Pi cope with? What's the best SBC if you want to do PWM? You know, that sort of thing. And they're questions I had, and I thought, well, hang on, I want to know, but I don't want to have to buy 5 SBCs to figure that out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I started
doing reviews.
So I was doing a lot more reviews and testing of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is nothing on no one was doing that. And I figured it would be handy because...
Yeah, well, I've watched things like, I think it was an Orange Pi review. Or some, There was some SBC I was curious about, and I saw you did it was like a 10 or 15 minute video talking about it. Yeah.
And I'm trying to structure it so that the tests were as were reliable as I could possibly get them. So that's what my channel. I sort of started out being quite broad, but then actually when I started out, I wanted to do carpentry. I wanted to do this. I want to do that, and like you never saw my carpentry videos because very very early on I thought no, I'm not going to do it. No. So so you got to find that thing that you are good at doing, and you can deliver well, and you deliver it. And if people want you to push you that way, well, you got to say, well, sure, I can go that way, but I'm not going to be able to deliver it as well. So let me just stay where I am. What I'm doing. So yeah, that's the thing I discovered. So I really, really love to get back into it. And I think I'm sort of getting my contracts to the point where... So I've got a 2-year contract now.
Are you allowed to say who that's with?
Oh yeah, it's with Scripps Union. So Scripps Union in Australia, they're merging. So they originally had different states, and they're all merging into one entity, right? So I'm doing all the IT, helping them out with the IT back end. Okay. Merging. That's not traditional IT. So I'm having to deal with. So for example, I went down to a campsite. And I was installing the PBX phones, they're just VoIP phones, to OTW over the wire, back end. And like I was cutting trees because for the long haul Wi-Fi, trying to improve the signal. Going back to, once again, I'm a generalist.
Yeah, it's solving whatever problem happens to be before you.
Yeah. So I was cutting with a chainsaw. I was just trying to get that signal going, and also auditing. So they've got a main office, and there's a campsite down in the valley and down near the lake, and you can just see the roof of the main house, the mess hall down there because it's a campsite, and so. I was trying to figure out how I can actually run a narrow beam Wi-Fi down there, probably ubiquity, more than likely, down there and reach it. And so I was saying, you need to trim these trees because when you get water on leaves, reflect RF, all that sort of stuff, and the trees wave like this. Yeah. So
and with RF, it's not just a matter of having like a single straight line. You need width around it. It's it forms a curve.
Yeah, so I sent a picture saying you need to cut this amount. So so that's the contract I'm on at the moment. But I'm trying to get into a position where I can get back to that, get back to making videos because I really miss it. I really miss it. But when I get back into it, I've got to be conscious not to burn out.
Yeah.
Because that's very easy to
Learn
do.
from what happened last time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'll probably get back into doing the reviews. Probably. Because I've got so many SBCs, stack of SBCs. Like, you name an SBC, I've got it in various forms, various revisions. So got a wall of SBC. So it'd be good to. I've been meaning to do a comparison video or a where is it up to now type video, which would be good. But
a state of the industry sort of thing.
790 meters. Yeah, 790 meters. So the distance is 500 meters, 600 meters. We're doing ubiquity. But I'm speccing out a 5 kilometre ubiquity link because 5 kilometres, you're not going to have any trouble. Yeah, hopefully. So ubiquity is pretty good. I've never used ubiquity, but have you used ubiquity?
Yes.
You have, okay.
Yeah, Unify. So my whole network is running on a dual.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our part, I got it. The Pi 4 April Fools. Yeah, I got a lot of backlash for that one. Hey. People, and so in the end, I had released a Pi 4. It was just before the Pi was released. It was April Fools, and so I released a video. I actually took footage of an interview by someone that looked like me from the back of the head. Yeah. With I can't remember the Pi Foundation's name. What's his name? Oh, you've forgotten now.
I have too.
Him.
Yes.
Yeah, that guy. Anyway, I'll let you remember it while I'm talking. And
got to squeeze it out of my brain. Yeah.
And he, so it was an interview about the upcoming Pi from I think it's Pi 3, and so I merged that in with me, and so I actually dressed like the interviewer. Yeah. And so what you were saying had a front-on view.
Yeah. So what you were saying was different to what the interviewer was actually saying.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so I was at the point, going back to my love of even. Yeah, go on. Thank you. Even Upton, yeah. And I was so my love of video production. And so that Pi 4 April Fools got a lot of kickback. So I had to put in April Fools in the title.
Because, be really explicit about it.
Yeah. Because a lot, even now, people watching it. So I got a message from Eben as well, saying, good one.
Did he think it was funny, or was he?
No, he thought it was funny. Yeah. He thought it was funny. Yeah. Interestingly, cool. I think I got two things right out of that one.
Oh, okay.
I think I got two things right. Yeah. So I missed the dual HDMI. So I think it was the CPU spec and the speeds I got right, and the memory. Yeah. That was pretty good.
So now you can claim you're a tech pundit.
Yeah, it would be nice if I got everything right. That would have been good.
Would have been.
It wouldn't have been April Fool's then.
Seems to be big business predicting what Apple is going to do next.
You can never predict. I mean, far out. Just, predicting stuff. Especially IT, you can go any which way. So, so I'd love to get back into videos. That'd be nice. Unfortunately, I don't have the resources available in terms of other people. So, I'd often be hauling my son and my daughter in. My daughter refused to be on TV, on video. She was a teenager at that time. But my son was good. Yeah, he helped me out a lot. That's good. Yeah, it's good. I really enjoyed it. I really miss it. So yes, I want to get back into it. Yeah. Just got to find that right time and out of contract. Or the ideal thing would be a 3-day contract.
Okay. Just to keep you going and give you time to work on the content.
Yeah, and probably spend 2.5 days, 3 days on content. Yeah. Which is enough to produce a video a week.
Yeah. So with the videos that you're doing on SBCs, that sort of thing, from a production point of view, you can plot out what you're going to do. You can have it all planned. I'm going to do these tests. I'm going to report on them. So the structure, you can set a certain period of time and say, I'm going to get it done in 3 days or whatever you know it's going to take.
Yeah.
How do you find the process with projects, which are much less predictable and much more extended over time?
Yeah, see, I think this is the good thing about having a pure IT contract. And it's a little bit more predictable. Well, sort of. I think it is. It's a little bit more predictable. But
now, what
embedded contracts.
Now, what I meant was projects that you're going to put on video.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I do have a number of project videos. Yeah, that's really hard because
I find them very difficult.
Yeah,
and it's my main thing. So
one of the things I found hard was I'll be sitting there recording one aspect of the project. Great, it all works well, and then suddenly, wait a second, what's going on? And then you stop the camera and sit down and think, and you're probably in debugging mode of you figuring out your code, and really watching someone code is boring.
It's boring, yeah.
So
people do live stream it, but still,
I'd find that distracting. Like I can't really do live stream coding because
I can't talk about it while I'm doing it.
Yeah. So my the way I address coding is very different to other people, probably, as Keen would probably know. Project's hard. So you get to the point where you got to stop the camera and then you do all this sort of stuff, that problem solve, whatever, and it might take a day, and then you think, okay, I got to pick up where I left off, because I'm making a video on it, and I actually want to be able to tell a story, because like if you want to keep people engaged, you tell a story, and so then you've got to go back and then think about what you were thinking before,
so that you can have
tell the story continuity, because you can't just go from I'm doing this, and then suddenly blank, and it works. It's watching Sion coding can be hilarious. Yes. So it's really hard. It is really, really hard to do that, and that's where. And I was actually thinking about that, and so I was almost at the point. So I bought a whole lot of cameras, and I was going to actually just record everything, and then go back later on and edit it. But then, if you've got 4 cameras,
that's a huge
over
amount of
6
footage.
hours.
And just scrubbing through the timeline, finding the bits you want.
Like even scrubbing, it's just I'm a big fan of scripted stuff because it keeps you focused, keeps it short, keeps it on point, and it doesn't end up being boring. So, but you can't do that with projects. So, like that, we were talking earlier on about that project I did where to see how quickly I could make a product from conception to actually selling it on Tindy, and it took me a week, and but that was still scripted quite a lot, and when I got to the a bit of the coding stuff, I still like I sort of hammed it up, I was saying, and this is the coding section, and. But trying to explain some of the things here and there, but it is hard. It is hard to do that, and I don't have an answer. I don't know. Apart from just sort of scripting it.
I found that when I'm filming a project as I'm working on it, typically the project might be done over the space of months. And you need it to end up as a 20-minute video or whatever period it is. So this is actually the backstory, partly why I shaved my head, partly why I ended up getting these shirts made, because I would work on a project, film a bit of it, and then 3 or 4 weeks later or 2 months later, I would come back to work on it. I'd open the footage and see what shirt was I wearing that day, and go and find that shirt and put it back on again, and where was everything on my bench, and rearrange it to be the same as it was. So I'd have videos that were shot over 6 months or longer,
that's hard.
And it would look like the whole thing was done in 10 minutes.
I have a problem with having footage from months back. So I try and reduce. I'll never use footage that's, if I'm making a video, I won't make a video that extends longer than a week. It's just the amount of effort that you have to expend, just continuity and all that sort of stuff, and making sure that it sounds and looks good. That's really hard. So I couldn't do it.
I had videos where I changed cameras halfway through a video because in the meantime I bought a new camera or a microphone had changed and then the audio was totally different. It's like all sorts of things that trip you up.
I spent a lot of time with sound insulation on the studio. So I actually built a full studio, control room, glass, double glazed and all that sort of stuff. So just so I could get continuous audio. So whatever, if I recorded it earlier in the week, it'll be the same video. Same audio.
It'll sound the same.
And really, audio is 90% of the video. So that's really, really important. If you can't hear people, you can't. I used to spend a heck of a lot of time on, right at the start, I'd probably be spending, what was the ratio? An hour a minute on editing. And I was trying to make my videos really, really, really snappy. And so I'll be cutting the gaps.
Down to the
the
a few frames at a time, and
but I'd be recording overhead, so it'd be just my voice, and so I'll be cutting all the gaps in my voice out. And after a while, I thought, that's terrible. It's just such a waste of time. And people were complaining that things were too fast. So I can't remember where I was going with this. Let's look at the
consistency of audio.
That's right, consistency of audio.
Alistair, I feel so sorry for you. Unintended side effect of switching to stacked 49-inch ultra-wide monitors. Most parts of the screen have you looking off camera. So now I have 7 cameras along the top and middle edges of my screens. I want to see a photo of that.
It's Richard Perrott, Circuit Seller. I'd get Circuit Seller magazines, they were great. What else? What other magazines were in the 80s? Keen would know. What was the other ones though?
There were a few. There was Dr. Dobbs.
Dr. Dobbs,
there was Electronics Australia. Electronics Today International. So ETI was
Midnight Engineering.
What really got me into
it. Byte. Electronics Australia was good. What was the one that? Such a long time ago. Far out. I must be old. There was one that was just released. Probably Electronics Australia just released the circuits every so often for something.
They used to do their cookbooks.
Cookbooks. And I just pour over and think, that's great.
Great. Nuts and bolts. That's right. Talking electronics.
Yes,
definitely keen.
Now that brings back memories.
Far out. I've got all the TEs.
But isn't it good though that like these days, just things are so much easier and quicker. So and really had my uncle been alive now, he would have absolutely loved it. It would have been fantastic. Diode,
Diode magazine.
Then I was switching cameras too much.
So that's Chip. You're talking about auto detecting. So. Alistair, the other comment I didn't read was, I'm writing software that takes in feeds from multiple cameras and uses pose estimation to automatically switch the feed to the camera that is closest to the direction you're looking. That's what I kind of had working, not using pose estimation, but the reason, you can't quite see it. There is the ultrasonic distance sensor on my microscope. And some of you would have seen, I used that on live streams a while ago, so that when I put my head up to the microscope, it would switch to the camera view through the microscope, and then I'd take my head away and it would switch back to the overhead view.
Nice.
And I haven't used that one for a little while, but auto switching cameras when you don't have an operator here to take care of it is very useful.
Don't have a control crew.
It
is. I actually had so when I had multiple cameras, I'd record multiple cameras at once. But I had a remote that just turned them all on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually ended up buying a Behringer X32 for the studio. So I had multiple cameras, multiple feeds in from computers and whatever.
Yeah.
But being able to switch over is really good really good for live stream, but also there's a lot of footage you don't want usually. And if you want to go to looking at a microscope, you don't want to have the overhead. You don't want to have the overhead.
Yeah.
And so you can quite easily cut it out. You want to end up with the least amount of footage to scrub through.
To do it in post. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else were we talking about earlier on? I'm sorry. I've probably veered away from your usual content.
My usual content. No, my usual content is randomly jumping from topic to topic and never finishing anything.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
What else were we talking about earlier on?
Well, I was going to ask you more about the light placer experience because you.
Okay.
Is it Kuha, the guy who makes the.
Kuha,
who makes the light placer.
Yeah.
So he sent you a kit. You assembled it.
Yeah.
Have you used it much or at all? Or?
No, I've gotten to the point where I've built it all out, and I've actually got footage for the next video. That's been sitting there for 2 years. 2 years. Actually longer than that, 3 years. So I haven't actually used it yet. I really, really want to use it.
Yeah.
I've got a stack of components that I bought pre this ridiculous situation we're in now. So a whole stack. I've got about 1,000 ESPs, 1,000 AT Tiny 416s, 426s too. So like on today's market,
you've got a retirement fund right there.
Yeah. But I actually want to use them. So and actually the AT Tiny 416 is the basis of my keyboard. So actually the keyboard that I have envisaged now is basically like a universal key. So it's just a single key that has a tiny AT Tiny 416 on it, and can feed out I2C and UART out one side.
Yep.
And it's universal, so you can stack them all together, daisy chain them out, and then I'll have another module which is probably 2 keys width, which is like a ESP32 or something,
which accumulates all the data and then does the emulation.
The emulation does the head head emulation. So that's the point that I'm up now. So I've actually got a design on it, and haven't sent it off for manufacturer yet.
That sounds like a really cool approach.
Yeah,
very flexible.
And I've got about a bunch of 50 motorized sliders off an audio desk. My son used to work for a audio house, and as they changed desks, as they fixed up desks, I would throw out the old motorized slider. And so I want to make a motorized slider controls that a dual thing. And the buttons have little screens on it too, so I found that really tiny screens that fit in, similar to your Stream Deck.
Yep.
Little screens that I found quite cheaply, so that little PCB fits within that footprint of a keyboard, and also accepts the standard keyboard keys. I think there's three different types.
Yeah.
I support 2. So you can plug in a normal keyboard key. You get off like what do you call it? Cherry MXs or whatever. Yeah. Actually, a side note. I went dumpster diving at a company a while back, and I picked up about 60 keyboards, 60 old keyboards. Like these are the old PS2 ones.
Yeah.
And after a while, I thought, many years later, I ended up tossing most of them out, kept 3 back, and while I was just pulling the components off recently, the keys off, I suddenly realised these are really expensive. I can't remember what the ones are. They're cherry. I don't think they're cherry MXs, but the ones that there's this whole world of people who
keyboard obsessives.
far out.
Yeah.
And I posted online saying, "Oh, how much is this?" And they said, "How much? I'll give you $5 a key for it." I thought, what? $5 a key? And I had 60 keyboards.
And you threw them out.
And I threw most of them out. What? It's far out. So yeah, it's weird. There's keyboard obsessives. I'm sorry if there's keyboard obsessives on the channel. I think it's great.
There are people obsessive about everything. It doesn't.
It doesn't
it's
matter.
all good.
But I just didn't realise that there was this whole market. But anyway, so that's one of the regrets I have. Dang it. So what were we talking about? You're talking about Light Placer.
Yes.
And I don't know how I got onto the keyboard thing. That's right. So I want to use the Light Placer to start making that those little keyboards. So that'd be really good. So that's a little project I got on the side. The intent is just going to be a little do-all thing button.
Yeah.
I'm trying to squeeze as much as I possibly can on this thing, and the footprint of a keyboard key is pretty tiny.
It's tiny, yeah. Particularly by the time you add some kind of an interconnect. Yeah.
So I don't currently have any sort of protection on it. So it's really hard. It's really hard, and I've got a lack of. So when you include the little display and the little the connection for that display, and being able to support a keyboard key that can poke through a hole.
Doesn't leave you much real estate once you've taken those through holes out of it.
So but I managed to squeeze the main functionality that I want on it. So that's good. So I'll be using the Light Placer for that this year.
Have you done any test runs with the Light Placer?
I haven't even. It's not even powered on, right? So I don't. I've got everything there. Everything's all set up. But I'm at the point where I was about to power on, and I wanted to power it on
camera.
On camera.
Yeah.
You got to capture those moments.
Yes.
Of sparks flying.
There are so many times when I've let smoke out of things when the camera has not been running, and I've regretted it.
Yeah. So often I'll roll the camera while I'm fiddling around, and I've captured the blue smoke escaping every so often.
Yeah.
The blue smoke of death.
Yes.
Yes, I should get it running, and I will.
Excuse me. So Keen, you have charm high. You got the charm high.
Yeah, he got it. Sion sold him a dud. So I will keen. I've been threatening to come up. So I was doing some work for Keen. As we're talking about the contract. So and actually we're talking about contractors not paying.
Yes.
So Keen, I was telling John about that company, which I'm not going to mention, not paying the invoice on time. And that's right. And so one of my contracts I picked up was with a company in LA, and that was for a claw machine manufacturer, and they had a fleet of 2,000 machines, and when the fellow approached me, I thought, yes, because it had a combination of low-level embedded stuff. It had a combination of back-end virtualization, networking, cloud, Docker, everything. Yeah, it's perfect. So I picked that up like nothing, and and so I managed to get to the point where every single machine, a fleet of 2,000 machines, are running a Raspberry Pi LTE module. They all back to base over LTE. You could see dynamically as people were moving joysticks, pressing buttons, and it also had credit. It also had purchasing as well. So you pay wave, or they call it something else in the US. But you pay for it had coin slot, paper slot, paper money slot, and card. And that was really good. It was working really well. So everything based on MQTT. So you move joysticks, it send a message back through SSH tunnels to the main server. That was really good. It works really well. But right towards the end, the fellow stopped paying me.
Yeah.
And he said, come on, I'm going to stop working if you're not going to pay me.
Yes.
So, and he got upset. I said, well,
no, you're not working for nothing.
But the problem was, and I think it's all expectation setting. You know, he didn't realise. So he wanted something done, and I said, okay, you want it done this way, great, I can do it. But this is how long it's going to take, and this is how much it's going to cost. And he said, yeah, okay, let's do it. But then it was taking too long for him. I don't know why. And it was costing too much. Well, you know, things happen.
Yeah.
You know, stumbling blocks, you know, you can estimate, but you wanted a time and materials thing. I had no investment in IP. It's pure time and materials, so you're going to get what you get.
Yeah.
But then you stopped paying. So, and it was fabulous. I even implemented stuff that he hadn't thought of, which was remote firmware upgrades. So you could do you had this nice console. So, oh, this one's out of date. Upgrade, and it'll actually upgrade the PCB that they use for control of the whole rig, using the Raspberry Pi. So that took a bit of effort to do. It was not really complex, but
then the payoff from putting in that groundwork would be huge.
Yeah, because then suddenly the mechanism that they had to upgrade the PCBs, like these are guys who have no technical knowledge at all. They give them an SPI flash, and they had to turn off the machine, plug the SPI flash in, turn the machine on, wait for until lights started flashing, turn it off, take the SPI chip out. That was
it.
Like, this is like the equivalent of it. Like, these guys had no technical knowledge at all, so of course, you know, things went wrong. They put the IC in around the wrong way. The pins we bent.
They turn it off too soon, or they pull it out while it's turned on, or every possible thing.
And so I found it really frustrating, because I spent a lot of time and effort doing this and deploying it, and to have that and have someone say, no, I'm going to pay you because not what I wanted. Well, you know, it's frustrating.
Prior to you doing this upgrade with the Raspberry Pis and things, I assume they didn't have Pis in them to start with. All of this was
they actually had Pis.
Okay. Did you need to make electrical changes on the machines, or was it all software?
I started to make PCB changes, but because the PCB was very well designed, but there was no. Oh, that's the other thing I did. There was no revision control. No, like the documentation was strewn across multiple PCs and things. And so, where's the revision for this board? And so, I don't know. And so, so I got one of the other guys in the office in LA to actually find it all, and so I managed to consolidate. So I consolidated it all, put it onto a local GitHub server for him. So, like, all this stuff I was doing.
Lots of foundational work.
Lots that should have been there. You know, revision control. It had none. Not even none. There was just.
It wasn't even in one place.
It wasn't even one place. It was terrible. So there was the Raspberry Pi was there because it had a screen on it, and the main communication back was I think it was UART. I think it was UART. It was some time ago now. And it was all quite reliable. The PCB was really well designed, but there were multiple revisions out in the field. Yes, revision control. Commit early, commit often. Absolutely. But you can imagine working with no revision control at all. And so setting up the GitHub was one of the first things I did. UART back to Raspberry Pi, had a screen on it, but the joystick, coin slot, all that sort of stuff was on the PCB. It's just the bells and whistles were on the Raspberry Pi. So I think at that point I deployed the Pi 4. I think it had a power issue at that stage still, on the Pi 4s. but still deployed it. It worked really well.
So to get to the point where you could do these remote updates, there's going to be a big hurdle you've got to get past, which is how do you bootstrap this process? So did someone have to physically go on site to 2,000 machines and do the updates to make this work?
Yeah. So I got it down to the point where so I had a full sheet of instructions where someone would go out and the Pi that was there, I think it was a Pi 3 or something, would slot back into virtually the same spot except with a different cable, HDMI cable. And then there was another cable I sent them instructions on how to make the cable for firmware upgrades, and so a bootstrap on that Pi already. So we sent them out the Pi with the SD card in, and it was set to read-only mode, so corruption issues. Plonk that in. So the field tech, what he'll do is he was open the cabinet and power it off. Sometimes I don't do that, but and replace the Raspberry Pi, put the cable in, and that was it. And they booted up, and so when the machine booted up, it would query the PCB, find out which revision it had, using some really funky sort of techniques, because it hadn't.
That's an interesting problem.
Didn't have a revision on some of the older firmware.
Yeah,
didn't have any feedback on where you're up to. So I had to figure out based on responses, certain responses, what sometimes the time it took to respond to certain commands.
Really? Okay.
But often default state, I'll just upgrade. But that was a problem because sometimes I couldn't reflash because the older revision PCB wasn't compatible with the latest firmware. Yeah. So it was a bit tricky. I don't think it really caused too many problems because they just had a spare PCB they just put in anyway. And I think we had instructions say if that little colour sticker, like this is a level, if that little colour sticker is there, then you need to change the PCB. If it's running the 8051, this particular version of 8051, then replace it. So there's this bootstrap process, and periodically it would report back what version it would run. Back to MQTT, love it. I think I did a video on MQTT in the early stages. Low bandwidth, low latency. Nice.
So this is actually a question that I'd like to throw out to viewers as well, because it's a problem that I've wrestled with. So the situation that I've had and what Mick is describing is you've got a deployed fleet of devices of varying hardware revisions, and the hardware revisions might have, for example, different sensors or different actuators, or maybe you've had to swap motor controllers, so now the way you control motors is different, and it may not be compatible with the same firmware. So if you are rolling out firmware that needs to run across all of these devices, how does the firmware discover what revision of hardware it's running on? So that's something that has been a real pain for me on a few projects. And so one technique that I've used is things like when the hardware has changed, it might have different, say a different I2C device on it. So what you can do is probe the bus and discover, do you have this particular, like a TMP36 temperature sensor, or do you have a TMP 9808 or whatever? And then from that you can infer which revision of the hardware the software is running on, and then it can adjust its behavior to suit. But often you can't do that. You can't actually tell by probing the hardware what version you have, but it can make a really big difference to operation. And the biggest problem that I have with this has bitten me a few times, is when you design a board and then later on you want to add a feature which is an input. Say you want to add a couple of buttons to it, just as a simple example. And on the buttons you want to have input pull-ups, external input pull-ups, because the microcontroller doesn't have internal pull-ups. And then you want the button to pull down to ground, like the classic pull-down input sort of situation. So you add support to this with the firmware and deploy it. But older versions of the hardware don't have this button, they don't have the pull-up resistor, the microcontroller doesn't have software controllable pull-ups, and now you're in a situation where you've got an input which could be in a floating state and may activate a feature that you've now got in your firmware that isn't supported on old hardware, and it gets randomly activated. So there are all sorts of weird things like this that can come up when you're changing to a new revision of hardware and you want to maintain backward compatibility in software.
Yeah.
So this is the question for the audience. How do you detect changes to the hardware from the firmware? And there are
you have 2 minutes.
we have some thinking music. Yes. So Stephen has a good suggestion. This is what I was just about to mention. A couple of input sacrifices, pull up, pull down to indicate revision based on binary result. Yes. And another technique I've used in the past is use a single analog input and put a voltage divider into it.
Yeah,
and you can set you can set various thresholds and things.
That's what a lot of DSOs use. They use. In fact, I saw a video on Dave Jones, who was talking about upgrading or enabling certain features in one of the DSOs that he had.
Okay. By opening it up and changing the...
Yeah, he opened it up. Yeah, it was just changing a couple of resistors in it.
Yeah, and then change the identification on the hardware.
Yeah, that's probably the best way. But depending on how many features you have, it's sort of like going to a coding analogy. It's like you've got a function. Do you have a function with a predetermined? I'm not talking about dynamic languages like PHP. I'm talking about static like Golang, things like that. So do you have a function or a method? Do you have a predetermined number of arguments, or do you send it a structure?
Yes. Yes.
And so
another problem I faced in the past.
So the analog input is analogous to sending that function a structure, because then you can just change. The argument.
You don't have to know in advance what it's going to be.
Yeah.
You just invent a new one.
Yes. Yeah. Or add a new type to the structure within the method, and
cable ties suggestion is a good one. I was going to bring this up. This one, did we rule out a small EEPROM? So that's another option, is putting an EEPROM on the board, and then you simply store a version number in it. And Andre's got the same suggestion. So these are the thing is that all of these sorts of things, if you plan for this from the start, it's not a problem. It's when you come into a project like Mick's, where he's taking over a fleet of 2,000 devices which are in the field and they're different hardware revisions, and you've got to try to determine it. That's a big problem.
And not only that, I don't have enough intel on exactly what PCBs are out there and what different revisions are out there.
Yeah, because they haven't been keeping records of different unit serial numbers versus
So yes, I'm still leaning towards like an analog input resistor. Simple voltage divider.
Yeah.
That's but it is tricky, isn't it? Yeah, I think there's two things that when you're taking over a fleet like I did, you can't do that.
You've got no control over it.
So you got to determine it other ways, and the way I determined it was just so you could query via the UART, the PCB. So there were a set of instructions. So basically, what I was doing regression testing.
Okay.
So I would actually test
whether a feature works
and test whether a bug existed.
Okay.
So if the bug existed, I'd say, well, okay, it's because they didn't have often the person coding wouldn't increment the revision counter often, and so he'd release a new revision of the firmware with the same version, and so so
that's scary.
Yeah, so I had to do basically regression testing to figure out the version. But that's a different. I think that's a different problem to the one you're talking about in a way, because that's stuff that's already there, and that's just stupidity that's caused that situation.
It's a historical situation.
Still valid and still something that you need to consider. But analog line's probably the best way.
Yep. Alistair, there was a question about Keen said you have to initialize the EEPROM. Alistair said you have to test the hardware and flash the initial firmware anyway. Write the EEPROM as part of the qualification. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm leaning towards as well. So what I would really like, most projects that I work on end up using I2C in some way. It could be as simple as it's got a temperature sensor on it or whatever. So typically I've got I2C available. And what I've been thinking of, and I haven't got to the point of investigating yet, is a really cheap, really small EEPROM. Just something that's I2C I can put on the board and use it for just storing something like a revision number for representing the hardware revision. It's going to be more expensive than a resistor divider, but it also means that we don't have to worry about having an extra analog input, which can be a problem. A lot of projects are really tight on inputs, and you need all the analog inputs that you can get. So having a solution like an EEPROM that just sits on an existing I2C bus and has zero impact on your I/O requirements is really interesting.
So the other thing you could do is just rely on I2C. So then you use the I2C buses as the feature enabling.
Yeah.
So it just queries out the bus and determines what's there and says, oh, you've got that. Okay, then I'll enable that.
Yep.
That's another option. But
yeah, I do that to some extent already, detecting things like what sensors are connected. So an example, and I can talk about this. Killer Geeks talking about the 24AA02E48T. Yes, I already use that one. In fact, I use that for MAC address loading on things like the Ether 10, the Ether Mega.
How much is that?
They are not expensive. I'm trying to remember what the price is. I think it's in the order of 20 cents or something.
They do a good
25 cents. Yeah, so it's not too bad. And okay, so one example that I use, just talking about Mick's suggestion of probing the I2C bus, the firmware, so talking about the water cannon project that I've talked about so much, one example of this problem is that I have firmware that runs on multiple versions of the joystick. So currently, for the joystick that controls the water cannon, we have 3 different revisions. Well, not revisions, they're 3 different products essentially. One uses an arcade joystick, so it's just switch inputs. One uses an analog joystick, so it's proportional control. And one of them is like a universal breakout input, which has got a whole lot of I/O pins that can be connected to switches or an RF receiver or whatever. Now that particular board, and what I want is firmware that will run on all 3 of those and will work, it'll just figure out what board it's running on and then change its behavior to suit, because I don't want to maintain 3 sets of firmware for boards that are essentially almost the same. And so what I'm doing in that situation is, for the general purpose breakout version, which has got a whole lot of I/O pins, I've got an MCP 23017 I/O expander in that, but that is not in the other products. So what the firmware does is probes for that I/O expander. If it finds it, it knows it's on that particular product, and it behaves accordingly. And if it doesn't find it, it knows it's not on that product. Keen said 23 to 25 cents in bulk. Is that what you just looked up?
I'd trust Keen's pricing than the ones. Oh, actually, no, I got 48 cents, but that's Australian, so that's about right. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so that can be a significant amount if it's a project where you're really cutting costs, like trying to trim down the bill of materials costs. But so Killer Geek suggested an AT21CS01, so single wire. Yep. 1K memory, nice. Yeah, and self-powered IO over the IO line, so you just need one digital pin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually AT21CIS, isn't it?
Yeah. Cool.
How much is that one?
That's the thing, is that one wire stuff tends to be more expensive. I found. There's a.
Oh no!
You got a shock when you saw a price?
No, I saw $10. I thought, what? No, it's not. It's 47 cents.
47 cents. That's not too bad.
But that's it's comparable to the other one.
Yeah, it's in the ballpark of the the other microchip EEPROM.
Interesting.
Mm.
That might change my design too.
Yeah. I see someone said one wire is a pain in the arse, guys.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Mm.
Yeah, it is pain.
Yeah.
But when you're limited on I/O.
Yeah, I've done a bit with one wire in the past.
See, with my
I
keyboard,
avoid it these days.
With my keyboard, I've got one I/O left.
So yes, you're right down to the limit. Do you have I2C anywhere?
Oh yeah, but I'm using it for interfacing between in and out. I could use it, but I don't have a real estate for anything big.
Okay.
Whereas
it's not even a SOT23? Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot that we're talking about something that's this big.
Whereas this,
SOT23
I need to find the physical dimensions of it, but it looks pretty good. Thank you for that.
Cool.
Who was that?
Killer Geek.
Killer Geek, good on you.
Nice one, Killer Geek. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a problem. But one wire. One other project I had was temperature sensors based on one wire. But then I was thinking, RS485, and then because I want to be able to measure the temperature in my house, but not just measure it. I want to be able to measure it in this room, in that room, in the hallway, in that room, that room, and measure it and build up a map. In the end, I bought for $9 each. I bought the Xiaomi. What are they? Xiaomi ones.
Xiaomi.
Xiaomi
I've got them. I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
There's one just up on this top corner of the whiteboard. You can see it called Xiaomi temperature
I saw one in
sensor.
the dunny as well.
Yeah. I did the same thing. I actually have one wire bus. I've got DS18B20s all through the ceiling and in different rooms of the house, and I don't even have it connected anymore, and because that's what I was using previously, and then I just ended up deploying the Zigbee based sensors. Which I've now got as door sensors and things as well.
Yeah, Ken, you're saying it's no unique ID.
But not a true unique serial, but not a true MAC address. Yeah, the advantage of the microchip parts is that microchip have been allocated a range of MAC addresses from the range that are assigned for Ethernet devices, and every device they ship is programmed with a unique MAC address. So when you get it, you put it on your board, and you've got a proper, valid, unique MAC address, which is really nice. That's what I use them for on Ethernet products, where you don't want to generate a random MAC address each time because that really screws up with networking. It causes big problems with all sorts of things for routing.
Unless you have
and
a real-time clock, but even then,
and a lot of Ethernet interface chips, like WISNet chips, don't have a MAC address assigned to them directly. They expect it to be configured at startup. So for that sort of project, it's really useful to have something like a MAC address ROM and just load it and then configure your Ethernet interface.
Also, if you're making a whole lot of them, serial numbers.
Yeah, that's true. Brady printers use the one-wire DS 2430A for roll ID. Okay. So do they have one of those in every roll? That's
I wonder why they're so expensive.
That seems like a very expensive way of doing it. I would think that this raises something that could be a big topic of conversation, but we won't get into it. The issue of architecting a system so that the cost is in the correct place, and this feels to me like if you have a label printer, you have one label printer, and then you keep replacing the rolls. If you put your cost in the rolls, that it's the wrong place. If you can put your cost in the printer, for example, using some kind of an optical sensor with barcodes that are printed on the rolls, at least then the cost of doing that on the roll is essentially zero or close to zero, and your cost is single. It doesn't scale out with usage.
Yeah. I looked up that DS part number. It's very rare.
Okay.
Well, I just looked on quickly.
The 2430.
I just looked quickly on DigiKey. I haven't looked anywhere else, but available 0.
Yeah. And Killer Geek says Dymo's new 550 label printer has DRM with an NFC chip in the roll. Yeah, that really sucks.
I think Dave posted a tweet about that, didn't he?
Yeah. And there's the whole move towards DRM just drives me nuts. Did you see
especially label printing?
Yeah. Did you see? I think it was the cricket cutters.
Oh, the cricket cutters.
Yeah, did it a little just recently. They went to DRM on I can't even remember what part of it was. There was something that they.
Is that because people could copy designs and print them out or something?
I think
Or cut them
so.
out.
And so my memory may be wrong here, but I think what they did was made it so that you could use the software was only online, and you could only store up to 10 designs or some limited number of designs unless you paid a license fee per month.
Oh my!
And if you didn't pay the license fee per month, your device stopped working.
Far out. It's just like what was that recently? I can't remember what it is. Something that happened recently. A company went bust, and I need to find out what it is. But it's the same story. A company goes bust. All these devices connect back into the cloud.
Yeah, and they all become paperweights.
And they all become complete paperweights. And some people spend $1,000 on these things.
Yeah.
And I think, come on, guys.
Oh, and it another one where it happened fairly recently was Sonos. I think it was speakers. There was a particular old type of Sonos speaker, and it got end of lifed, and essentially they all got disabled. So people that had spent thousands of dollars on speaker systems for their homes, and because some online software was no longer being maintained by the company, all of a sudden their speakers stopped working. It's like, what the hell? Yeah.
Just unbelievable. Yeah, so I've actually got an HA system at home. I sort of haven't really used HA until early in the year. And so I've written so I've got solar on the house, and it's a SunGrow system. And so I reverse engineered their API. It's not an API. I discovered that what they do is, so I went basically downloaded their Android app and went through all the code, the binary, and pulled out managed to find all the endpoints. So they actually had endpoints going back to a server in the cloud, and so long and short, I actually wrote an HA plugin that can talk back to their cloud API, and I've reverse engineered all the endpoints, and so I can pull all the data down. And so it's really nice to be able to. Where was I going with this one? We
were talking about end of lifing devices,
that's right. So, but that's going back to their cloud system, and I know that SunGrow. There was on GitHub. There's an attempt to reverse engineer the actual talking to the device itself, the inverter, and someone actually managed to do it. But I knew of more recent firmware update. It just axed it. Because you got to have certificates. They've changed their certificates. And, come on. Just allow us to. We bought it.
Stop going out of your way to make things hard for your customers.
So, but it's the age-old issue of lock-in. You've seen it in HP. Was all the printer manufacturers are renowned for that. You know, you buy a printer for $500. New cartridges cost $400. And you think, wow. So it's a constant thing.
Yes.
There's some companies around who do respect makers a bit more.
There definitely are. There are some really good ones. Like
so I think Thai TU, I don't know how you pronounce it, TUYA.
Tuya.
They sort of do.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No.
They sort of. They sort of do. They sort of don't. But they do have a mode you can have, which is local developer mode or something.
That's on the Sonoff. But
Sonoff, yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's right,
Sonoff definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
IT. They definitely do.
IT, yeah.
They
But yeah, sorry, not.
no, Tuya do
Tuya.
not. They are like the anti-Sonoff,
Yeah.
and their business model is very much catering to large companies that want to just buy in the cloud connectivity portion of their product
Yeah.
and then data mine it.
Yeah.
So it's not in their interests to let you localize, control, or
No, that's
cut them
right.
out of the
Yeah,
picture. They'll actively try to stop it.
and
Another
there's-
one that's really good is Altaco, who make the Shelly line of home automation devices. To the extent that they actually put a programming port accessible on the outside of the product. So yeah, you plug in your header and you can reflash it, and
Wow.
So
That's good.
And they're fully certified devices. They're not. They're pro level devices, but they're designed to be hackable, which is really cool. So there are companies that do that, and I really respect that. It's the way it should be.
Yeah, yeah. I just noticed Richard Perry codec picture frame, cloud only. What? Come on. That's unbelievable. I mean, that's a privacy issue, for one. Like, I don't want my photos in their cloud.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah, printer
Codec went away from
refills, Sonos Recycle. Yeah, there's a whole lot of them. Meraki Wireless. I haven't heard that. Oh, okay. Subscription only model.
Alistair says local to you is okay, but super fiddly to set up. Yeah, and that's
that's the problem.
That's a nasty hack to get around the fact that Tuya do not want you to have local control.
Yeah. But they're going to lock it off, I reckon.
Yeah, it's a constant battle.
And it's even worse when you buy, in the local Bunnings store. You probably have it down here. They have a Holman watering system. So I bought a whole lot of that and started fiddling around with those, and they're sort of loosely based on Tuya, but not really.
Yeah.
And it's probably worse. But I managed to get it going with HA.
Okay.
Bit of hacking around. But yeah, it's an age-old problem, and they're just getting more and more nasty about it. Especially these days when we're in a situation where we have this massive part shortage.
Yeah.
And people are now getting to the point where, we've actually got to fix it. And so either if I don't have the technical skills, I take it to someone who can fix it. And then suddenly you'll see a rise of local shops that can actually fix TVs and things. We've got parts shortage, and the newer devices are becoming scarcer and scarcer. For this contract I'm on at the moment, I ordered a switch, and they're...
Are you talking about Unify stuff?
No, it's just a plain...
Because Unify is unobtainium.
Yeah, we managed to get some. But a plain HP switch, 48 port with PoE, and their ETA was January next year. What? Yeah. So it's going across the board.
Yeah.
So your right to fix is going to become even more and more important, and not being locked into this cloud subscription thing, because if it keeps going like this and it gets worse, you won't be able to buy the devices.
Yeah, so you can't buy them new, so you can't replace them.
Yeah, you can't. So you've got to be able to fix them.
Yeah,
it's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
I sort of get those companies doing that to some extent as well. I avoid Cisco like the plague.
Michael says yes.
Yeah, Cisco. Yeah. You buy the device, you don't get all the features. I sort of get it. Like during a business, the bean counters, they want to be able to keep making money because they're in business. But there's a point where as Google say, do no evil. Well, they don't do that anymore, do they?
No, they rescinded that.
They rescinded it. I'm not going to say that anymore. It's too limiting. It's... Russia stole Ukrainian...
John Deere tractors. Yeah. That's an interesting one.
Elon Musk being requested to shut down all the cars.
Yes. So the So Joe Anon said, when Russia stole some Ukrainian John Deere tractors, John Deere shut them all down. Yeah, so this is opening up a big can of worms that I'm sure we could talk about for a long time. There was a really interesting short article. Oh, and I've gone totally blank. This is terrible. There's a writer who I met at OzCon many, many years ago. He wrote Little Brother and Cory Doctorow. That's who it is. So Cory Doctorow wrote a little piece about the shutdown of the John Deere tractors in Russia, and making the point essentially that, so what happened was Russian soldiers took tractors from Ukrainian farms and took them to other places, some into Russia, some elsewhere, I think Belarus or wherever, and they were remote killed by the tractor maker. And everybody went, hey, isn't it funny that they went to all this trouble of stealing like $500,000 tractors and then they just got shut down? And Corey's point was, yeah, but stop and think about it. That remote kill feature was not put in place to stop Russians from stealing Ukrainian tractors.
Correct.
It was put in place to control American farmers.
Yep.
And that was actually why they have it. It's to stop American farmers from using tractors that they bought for what they want to use them for. It's it's very much a big brother sort of control thing, and preventing people from repairing devices that they've bought.
Yeah, it's shocking. And I think, I won't go. I was going to go down a topic.
Oh no, this could be a controversial one, and it's Richard said, just imagine Tesla miss a car payment and potentially they could disable the car.
Yeah, it very is.
Yes, and Joe Anon said, seems like a national security issue to me. We use John Deere too. Yeah.
Richard Parrott. Global supply issue. It's just so it's I've seen now it's hitting the IT side of things. So there's usually a fair lag by the time you hit IT kit, because HP, all the major vendors have massive stock, and they have the whole supply chain to the point that they can suffer a certain loss in supply chain, and it doesn't really affect them. But it's now at the point where a year for a plain 48 port Cisco PoE router, a switch, and it's just So hold on to your phones, hold on to your desktops, your computers, anything.
Yeah, don't drop your phone. You may not be able to get a new one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it also raises the question of how did we get in this situation? And the thing as makers that we're benefiting from, which is very low cost production of PCBs and parts and components and everything else, is also our undoing, because we're dependent on China. Very much so. Definitely. It's probably not so much now, like now we're starting to see more manufacture happening here, then our Achilles heel is now the semis.
It's now the parts. That's right. It's moving back up the supply chain. Yeah. So previously we were just receiving the completed goods. Yeah. And we are starting to do some of the assembly of the goods and moving back. But if you go all the way back, we still can't do the whole thing from beginning to end. But we're starting to see that now. People manufacturing, creating their own chip labs. But they won't ever be complex things. No, they'll be very basic. 50 years. Simple process. Yeah. But who's that guy on Twitter? I've followed. He's making his own semis in his garage, far out. Yeah. That's fantastic. That's something we could talk about. But Keen made a good point. He tied this back in, said tricky ethics about doing that. So this is talking about like remote kill. Tricky ethics about doing that in embedded code as a contract. It goes back to the client paying bills things earlier. I know what Keen's referring to there. Yeah. So this is a customer whose name will remain nameless, and I was talking to you about lever control system, and the customer said, can you put in a remote kill, so if the customer doesn't pay, then I can disable it? And Keen and I said, well, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, we can do that.
But then he went around and didn't pay bills. So then Keen and I were discussing,
can we use this feature?
We can do that.
Yeah.
We can. It's a drive-by thing, right? So it's not LTE or anything.
Yeah.
So it's drive-by. We can actually kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know how to do it.
But then there's a big ethics thing. Yeah. I was actually going to bring this up as well because many years ago, I'm trying to think of how many years ago. I think it was about 22 years ago. I worked on a project. This was one of the very early IVT projects. And I've talked about this a little, not this aspect of it, but I have talked about this project before on live streams. We worked on a system for industrial air conditioning systems for high-rise buildings. It was for a company, in fact, I'll name the company because it doesn't really matter anymore. The company was called TurboCore, and they developed a quite innovative type of compressor used in air conditioning systems, like really big air conditioning systems, not domestic. And they set up a development facility over in Montreal in Canada. So I went over to Canada twice and spent some time over there working on the control system for it. And one of the interesting things about it was that this was one of the early large-scale air conditioning systems that had telemetry. And what they wanted to be able to do was have these deployed around the world and sit in a control room and see live data. So what my company did was build the interface that acquired all of the data and do all of the control side of it. And we built a control room there that was deliberately set up to look a bit like NASA Mission Control. It had a glass wall so that you could stand outside and look into it. And it had big desks with wraparound screens and status displays and things. And the idea was they could bring in their customers and say, look how high tech we are. We can control this air conditioning system in Tokyo from here in Montreal, all of that sort of thing. And so the system that we built was for diagnostics and remote management and repairs and those sorts of things. But if you build a system that allows you to control something remotely, automatically you get remote kill. And so they talked about using this system with a business model where someone could buy the air conditioning system on a payment plan, and if they stop making their payments, they turn off the air conditioning. So, this is an ethical question.
Yeah, it is. Like when I had that LA contract, I wasn't thinking about remote kill. I was thinking about security, all that, but I wasn't thinking about embedding a remote kill feature into it, so I could actually kill all these 2,000 fleet of machines. Very easy to do. Yeah. But from at least from my standpoint, I don't believe in a remote kill because it can be used. Yeah.
It can be misused.
It can be hacked.
It can be used by some third party. So, yeah.
Keen, do you want lunch? Keen, you're saying getting close to lunchtime.
5 minutes. What is this? The 5-minute warning? What? Yeah, it's 11:55. We are getting close to lunch.
Okay. Did you burn your pizza from last night, Keen?
Pizza? I want pizza now. Shouldn't have mentioned that.
Maybe you have to get an Uber.
Yeah. Stephen said, this is talking about chip production. Newer gen chip fabs are hugely expensive, unlikely to get that locally here. Yes. We're talking about like $10 billion installations.
Yes, but there'll be more of a incentive to not have it in China. There'll be more of an incentive to have it onshore than in China. Yeah. But there would need to be a very, very good reason for it. I can imagine something like the Pi Foundation doing that, potentially putting that onshore in UK, but you need to have a very, very good reason to do it. Yeah, and the scale and all of that sort of thing. Keen said yes, he burnt the pizza and pointed out that the local cafe near me is very good. Yes, Keen has sampled the local cafe, so as long as it's celiac too.
Okay.
So, unfortunately I'm celiac.
Yeah.
It's gluten free.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the one that I went to with Keen and Sion when they came over, they cater for all sorts of different things. Nice. So I'm pretty sure they'll be okay.
Problem people.
I'm a problem person too with Crohn's.
Okay, yeah, cool.
So Keen said, see you there in 10 hours. Yeah, we might be a bit hungry by then. Sorry, Keen, we can't wait for you.
Yeah.
Andrew said, do you still want that USG Pro? I absolutely do. Andrew, is there some way I can get in contact with you? You could email me as John, Jon, at oxer.com.au. And yes, I've just doxed myself, but if some spam bot wants to extract it from the audio, then they're trying pretty hard.
I do that all the time too, far out. Have to re-edit video.
Yeah.
Damn, I put my address on there.
Yeah.
So Sian, what are you doing? Your new RMPs have a remote
melt the PCB.
Nice.
What?
Nice. That's a great feature.
Yeah.
Subscribe to join the Scientology mailing list. Thank you, Michael.
Very kind. Yeah. So what that remote melt the PCB reminds me of burning fuses, or the cutaway devices in rockets for things like parachute deployment. And you could put something on the PCB where this is the remote, the ultimate actual remote kill, physical destruction of the remote device.
Not that hard to do.
No. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we are pretty much on time. And
wow, that's good. So what about questions?
Yes, I won't stop you from using Reflow Master, but I'll make all of your boards melt. Yes. Yeah, the RMP, Reflow Master Pro.
Yes.
Yes. When it has control over heating, it's potentially a safety thing. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So I looked at your excreta sucking thing. I haven't actually seen one up close, so it was good. It's a great idea.
I've just shown Mick the vacuum.
Yeah.
What
do you call it?
What is it called?
Vacuum thingy.
Vacuum template box thingy.
You need to come up with a really
stencil
good name.
box thingy.
You need to come up with a good name.
Yeah.
Something that's catchy.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, cool.
That's good.
Well,
good having a chat. I could just go on for another hour if you really want to. Go for another hour.
It's very tempting.
Except I'm getting really hungry.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry too. And there were other things that we didn't even get to talking about that we were planning to, I think. We didn't talk about some of the projects,
I've talked
the
about
custom input devices. You mentioned the wheelchairs.
Yeah. My son sent me a wheelchair, two base units for a wheelchair. These are things that can cope with 150 kilos. And he works for a wheelchair company, and he removed all the limiting factors on the wheelchair, so it can go 25 kilometers an hour, which is really nice. So
thanks, Andrew.
I really want to be able to do something with it.
Yeah.
So
yes. Well,
I think it's something
we can talk again on another live stream.
Yes.
Yes. Maybe you should do some live streams too.
Yeah.
It's,
I should do.
Yeah. To me, it's kind of like the lazy way out. It means I can do a video with zero preparation.
Yes.
And no editing. Right. It's just start it, stop it, and walk away.
The trouble is I'm a bit like Dave Jones. You just ramble on and on and on.
That's what I do. Okay. Well, Mick, thank you very much for coming along. I will edit the video description to add a link to Mick's channel, so that please everyone go and subscribe to Mick, and maybe he'll do some more videos again soon. And in the meantime,
that would encourage me. I have to say, it would encourage me to do it.
In the meantime, there is a wealth of older videos, things like single board reviews. So if you're curious about a particular SBC and you want to see what it can do, Mick has lots and lots of videos about that sort of thing. So we're going to go and check out the lunch situation.
Yeah.
Yes, Keen, I will check. And
see you guys.
We'll see you all later. So thank you very much. Bye.